This episode is brought to you by the Healthcare Technology Report, a leading information source on healthcare technology companies and solutions. Today, we speak with Raviv Pryluk, CEO of PhaseV, a company leveraging reinforcement learning and causal machine learning to design and run adaptive clinical trials that improve success rates while reducing cost and time. Raviv is an experienced executive with a track record across engineering, data science, biotechnology, and computational neuroscience. His passion lies in solving complex multidisciplinary problems that have a broad positive impact on the world. Since its founding, PhaseV has expanded from trial design into execution, analysis, and portfolio planning, now supporting over 30 biopharma and CRO customers worldwide, with measurable results, including cutting development costs by up to 50%. I'm your host, RJ Lumba. We hope you enjoy the show. If you like the episode, click to follow.
RJ Lumba is the Executive Chairman of Market Insight Media and Managing Partner of GrowthCap. He is the host of Key Executives, a podcast for driven executives and business operators. Our podcast covers all topics related to effective business leadership, from strategy and culture to products and services to sales and marketing and everything in between. In the minutes ahead, we'll share with you unique insights and tactics from some of today's most accomplished and inspiring executives.
Raviv, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. It's a delight to be with you.
Thank you for having me.
So I thought where we could kick off is to understand the context of where PhaseV sits within the clinical trial overall process and framework. And then from there, we can go into finer detail as well as talk a little bit about your background. But first, let's talk about PhaseV and where it sits.
Sure. So maybe slightly before I touch exactly on this point, I'll say that we always like to start with the problem, right? We are here in order to solve a big problem, in order to do something positive for patients. Mm-hmm. So what's the problem that we are tackling, right? Clinical development and clinical trials in particular. This is the longest and most expensive part. Massive failure rate. We are talking about more than 90% likelihood to fail from preclinical up to market. More than 10 years, more than $3 billion. So very long, high failure rate, super inefficient. And the end result is that patients are dying while waiting for life-saving medicines and drugs that potentially are out there. Innovation is out there. There are so many innovative biological, clinical solutions, medical solutions that are out there that can treat patients due to the problems that I just outlined. And if that's the case, we need to find a way to optimize the process. And that's where PhaseV taps in. Basically, we are involved in the design, execution, analysis, and portfolio management. So we listed the 6 main reasons why clinical trials are failing. It's not the right dose, it's not the right population, it's not the right indication. We are not designing the trial appropriately. We are not executing the trial appropriately, and we are not leveraging the totality of the data. And then in order to avoid these 6 pitfalls, we develop tools for design, execution, analysis, and portfolio management. Basically, vertical AI solution across the entire chain of clinical development.
As you describe it, it seems complicated to be able to optimize each of those steps along the way to improve the overall probabilities. I mean, clinical trials have been around for decades. It hasn't been solved. In fact, we talked to another company the other day that engineers human tissue to improve the probability of clinical trials. What gave you the confidence or maybe the insight that you could execute on this and materially move the needle on clinical trial success?
So actually, it's a very interesting point that you might listen to me and say, hey, they're trying to tackle the entire, vertical, the entire chain, instead of focusing on segment. That doesn't make sense, right? It wasn't the case originally. When we started, we were focused on design. We said, basically, if you would design the trial optimally, all the rest will follow, which to some extent is right. But then as we started being involved in more and more clinical trials, we realized 2 important things. A, design is not enough, because you can design a trial and then if someone else is going to execute it and execute it poorly, basically you're not going to achieve optimal solutions. So instead of dealing with local optimum, we are trying to deal with the global optimum. And the second point is that actually there's a room for tapping into the entire segment. And I think this is very different. I mean, AI and software are allowing us today to be involved in the entire vertical instead of focusing only on segments. So we started with design, and then we said, hey, basically, after we are already working with the global pharma companies, we are working with more than 40 by now. We designed a trial for them. Why wouldn't we use the same tools in order to work with them towards the execution? And after we execute or supported the execution, why wouldn't we support the analysis? And then we see the results. Why wouldn't we support portfolio management? And then basically we've learned that actually it's a flying wheel effect, and we are getting more than being vertical rather than focusing only on segment. It created a lot of challenges. That's why we grew. We raised substantial amount of capital in order to support all those segments. But we believe that this is a massive differentiation of PhaseV, that we are vertical instead of focusing only one segment.
Would you be able to share with us an example of when PhaseV was able to help out a CRO or a pharma company and really go through the entire process? And it sounds like there is an example of that. And where you were able to see clearly PhaseV did improve the outcome. Had they not used PhaseV, their success would have been very different.
Yeah, that's a great question. And obviously we are being constantly asked by clients, show me that indeed you are demonstrating real prospective ROI. And we have numbers from various cases that we conducted with pharma companies across the globe in terms of cutting development costs by 50%, increasing probability of success by 30%, and so on and so forth. So let me walk you through one example. It's the end of a phase 2 trial in immunology, pharma company. We are tapping in actually in the analysis phase. There's a readout of phase 2. There are some results. We are analyzing the results using our causal machine learning technology. This is a fusion between causal inference and machine learning in order to answer causal questions instead of just correlation. We are finding that actually subsets of patients are responding very well to the treatment where others are not. This is the analysis phase. And then, surprisingly, the pharma company is getting external cohort that wasn't available before, that is actually validating our result incredibly well. This is very rare in machine learning settings, right? So you are making predictions and then getting external prospective results that are validating what you just predicted. So that's the analysis phase. Then we are feeding this into the design phase and supporting the design of a phase 3 trial and demonstrating an increase in probability of success in power. And then we are using our execution tool in order to inform site selection that are informing the right patient populations that were analyzed. And then this trial end up with much higher probability of success. We can compare in simulation, but also based on the analysis of the two teams. So this is a flow from analysis to design all the way to execution, choosing sites and monitoring the trial, and really seeing that there's a validation across prospective, external cohort, and then prospective trial.
Now let's talk a little bit about your background, and curious if your focus and experience has always been on the space of biotech, pharma, the sciences, or has it been more on the technology side?
So maybe a little bit about myself. So I have a bachelor's and master's in engineering, actually aerospace engineering. My PhD is in computational neuroscience. I've been for many years in other industries, defense industries, tech industries, and only then switched to biotech. And I think that throughout my career, I got quite often the question, how is your background related to what you do, right? I mean, you studied aerospace engineering. Why are you doing PhD in computational neuroscience? You've been in this industry. How is it relevant to immunology? How is it relevant to clinical trials? And actually, I find it the other way around. I'm an engineer, and what I was trained to do is to solve problems and to use all the available tools, whether it's math or physics or computer science or chemistry or optimization or AI or whatever the tools that I have in my toolkit, in order to solve the problem in the most efficient and successful manner, right? This is what I'm trying to do. And one time it can be just using linear regression. Another time it could be using the most advanced algorithm that is out there. We are not after shiny tools. We are after solving problems. And when we founded the company, we were focused, and I started this conversation as well, always focus on what is the problem that we are trying to solve and what is the shortest path towards solving this problem. And I think my career was quite consistent in that respect. I'm very curious. I wanted to know about space and airplanes. I wanted to learn about the brain. I wanted to come up with algorithms that can explain autism due to personal reasons. And then at some point, I realized that actually we are blocking innovation across all therapeutic areas: cancer, immunology, obesity, autism, Parkinson's, just because clinical trials or clinical development is broken. And then me and my co-founder sat together and said, what needs to be done in order to remove the bottleneck of clinical trials? And we came up first with optimizing design, and then gradually we said, okay, our tools are relevant also for execution, analysis, portfolio management. So, that's me in a nutshell, and that's the approach that we are taking.
I'm curious, it sounds like part of the mission is to really help these problems affecting humanity, and they're specific, the various ailments or afflictions. If you could speed up right through PhaseV, the clinical trial process, and not only speed up, but increase the effectiveness, is there a group or a company on the front end that's doing such a great job of innovating that you've seen where you say to them, oh, wow, we'd really love to help you. You're doing great work. We see you as the future to propel drug development forward. Curious if you've seen one of those. It could be even a small company.
You have no idea how lucky I am, because every week I'm meeting incredible scientists and clinicians that are developing incredible medicines, medical devices, solutions for patients. I am now looking out of the window and I see Kendall Square, I see MIT, and Harvard is not far. There are bright scientists here that are developing life-saving biology. The team in Tel Aviv is not far from Tel Aviv University and the Hebrew University at the Technion, the forefront of innovation. And we are working with 40 global pharma companies across the globe, right? In the US, in Europe, in Asia. Our thesis, and actually it's backed up by numbers, is that more than 80% of the drugs are not failing because the drug is not working, rather than because the 6 reasons that are outlined. And if we can remove those, misguided decisions and help those companies to bring drugs to patients, it's a win-win situation for everyone, for the innovators, for patients, and this is what motivates us, right? So if you ask me about one example, I can give you 40 at least. All the companies that we are working with, small biotech, big pharma companies, we see incredible value in the drugs and the medical device that they are developing. And basically, we quite often see that they're failing because they didn't choose the right dose. It's not the right patient population. It's not the right indication. It's a poor trial design, poor execution. Those are very annoying reasons why to avoid. I'm sure that you've seen those videos of those rare diseases in babies or young patients that at some point, once they get the drug, immediately they can see or can start hearing. Those videos are incredible. There are so many biological solutions, technological solutions that can do it for so many patients across the globe. We just need to remove the bottlenecks from clinical development in order to get there.
Now, you've got some great investors backing you. You've brought in Insight and Excel. Tell us what it's like working with them and maybe some of the value that they've brought to the table aside from pure financial capital.
Yeah, so first of all, I think we are lucky to have great investors, as you mentioned, Excel and Insight, but also early on, great seed investors across the board. We are trying to be very open and transparent in terms of who we are and what we are trying to achieve. And we are trying to look for believers because, to be quite frank, what we are doing is super complex. Most likely we are going to fail, right? that's the reality. Most startups fail. Most likely we are going to fail. That's the reality. That's what I'm saying to new employees, to investors. But if we will be successful, it's going to be massive. It's going to be massive for patients. It's going to be massive for employees who are devoting, their life to our mission. And it's going to be massive for investors. It's going to be massive return over investment. But you need to be a believer. You need to believe in the team. You need to believe in the space. Now is the time to bring innovation, AI, and software to clinical development. And you need to believe in the technology and the proof points that we already have. And I'm lucky to have investors that are true believers. The second thing is that, having investors, founders themselves, that tend to become investors, that been through this journey many times with other companies and help us to avoid pitfalls and to be bold and to take risks. This is something that we are very proud of. And the last point is obviously shortcuts. Whenever there's a shortcut, we are up for that, right? I mean, the journey is so difficult. So whenever there's a shortcut, we are all for it. If there's a warm introduction to potential client, or there's warm introduction to a collaborator or tech vendor, yes, we are all for it. And those investors are incredible in all fronts that I just mentioned.
Excellent. We're coming up on the tail end of the conversation. I have two final questions. So one is, can you tell us about a person who has had a profound influence on you?
So my young brother is an autistic patient, also with epilepsy. And I think what I've learned is that A, we need to try to find creative ways, and B, that patients don't have time. And if there's one thing that we're trying to do is to accelerate timelines dramatically. Patients are waiting, and we need to restlessly work as hard as we can in order to get there for him and for millions and millions across the globe. So, yeah.
Last question. Can you tell us about a charity, cause, or other endeavor that you're passionate about?
So recently, there's a biotech company that we are trying to support that are trying to develop drugs for brain cancer and GBM, glioblastoma. And this is devastating. Once identified, usually, patients are dying after a couple of months. But this is just one example. We are working across rare diseases, immunology, oncology. There are so many diseases out there that are devastating. I feel proud and lucky to support innovators, scientists, physicians, ClinOps experts in their journey in order to fight those cancers, diseases. So, yeah, I think we are at the front of supporting a lot of very important initiatives.
Well, Raviv, thank you so much again for taking the time for this conversation. It's really been a wonderful one.
Thank you. Thank you so much.